Have you ever stopped to wonder if the color of your hair could hold a deeper meaning? Not just in terms of appearance, but as a symbolic mirror of your inner world. At first, it might sound like a superficial curiosity, a simple trait determined by genetics. But for Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, nothing about our physical appearance is truly random. Everything visible carries an invisible story. Jung believed that the external world and the internal world are deeply interconnected. Our physical traits, whether by nature or choice, can act as archetypal symbols, reflecting the energies, tendencies, and psychological patterns that shape who we are at the core. And few features are as symbolically loaded as the color of your hair. Think about it. Across every culture, every myth, and every era, hair color has been associated with certain energies, temperaments, and destinies. Whether it's the fiery spirit of the red-haired, the radiant presence of blondes, the mysterious depth of black hair, or the grounded wisdom of brunettes. Each carries an ancient symbolic weight rooted in the collective unconscious. It's not fortune-telling. It's not superficial. It's a psychological lens, a way of looking deeper into yourself. Because what if the color of your hair isn't just aesthetic, but a symbolic imprint of the energy your soul naturally carries into this world? What if it subtly influences your emotional patterns, your strengths, your challenges, and even your spiritual path? When we look through Jung's eyes, through the lens of archetypes, symbolism, and the collective unconscious, something as simple as hair color transforms into a powerful mirror of the self. It's not about putting you in a box. It's about recognizing the energies you embody and how they interact with the world around you. In this journey, we're going to explore the deeper meaning behind hair color. Whether you were born with it, or even if you've chosen to change it, your hair holds clues. It speaks the silent language of archetypes, and by understanding it, you can gain profound insights into your psychology, your emotional blueprint, and the energies you naturally radiate. But before we begin, if you are someone who seeks meaning, self-awareness, and growth, consider subscribing to our channel. This is a space for those who are ready to go beyond the surface, to decode the hidden symbols of the psyche and step into a deeper understanding of themselves. Now, take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear might forever change the way you look in the mirror. You'll realize the reflection staring back at you was never just about appearance. It was always about energy, identity, and the unique psychological imprint your soul carries. The psychological mirror behind your hair color. To truly understand why something as simple as your hair color can hold profound meaning, we first need to look deeper into Carl Jung's view of reality. Jung believed that life isn't divided between what is physical and what is psychological. In his view, the outer world and the inner world are mirrors of each other, constantly reflecting, influencing, and shaping one another. This wasn't just poetic thinking. It was a fundamental principle of his work. Jung proposed that the psyche speaks in the language of symbols, and that everything around us, including our own bodies, is a canvas onto which the unconscious mind projects meaning, energy, and archetypal patterns. According to Jung, there is something called the collective unconscious, a deep, universal layer of the mind shared by all humanity. Inside this collective unconscious live the archetypes, timeless, symbolic patterns that exist across all cultures, myths, and human experiences. The warrior, the healer, the sage, the trickster, the lover. These aren't just characters in stories. They are psychological forces that live within us, and often show themselves in the way we think, feel, act, and even in how we appear. Jung believed that symbols are not random. They are the psyche's way of expressing energies that are too deep, too primal, or too vast for words. Whether in dreams, in myths, or even in physical traits, symbols are the bridge between the conscious mind and the mysterious depths of the unconscious. So, what does this have to do with your hair color? Everything. Your hair, its texture, its shape, and yes, its color, is one of the most visible expressions of your physical identity. And in Jungian psychology, the physical identity often acts as a symbolic gateway into the inner world. It's a way the psyche speaks, whether consciously or unconsciously. This is why, throughout history, hair has carried powerful symbolic weight. In ancient myths, religious texts, and folklore, hair was never seen as just hair. It was a symbol of vitality, seduction, rebellion, purity, power, wisdom, or wildness, depending on its form, color, or the choice to cut it, grow it, or change it. Even today, the way we perceive different hair colors is loaded with unconscious associations. Blonde hair evokes different reactions than black hair. Red hair carries different energies than brown. Gray hair communicates something entirely different from all of them. And when someone chooses to dye their hair, whether to express rebellion, align with an aesthetic, or reclaim youth, they are not just changing appearance. They are engaging with the symbolic language of the psyche. But here's the key point. Whether your hair color is natural or chosen, the color you carry often resonates with the psychological energy you most strongly embody, or the energy you are unconsciously drawn to develop, express, or heal. This isn't superstition. It's not about fortune-telling. It's about symbolism. The same universal language that Jung saw in dreams, in myths, in synchronicities, and yes, in the very fabric of who we are. Jung believed that the psyche constantly seeks wholeness, and in that quest, it expresses itself through symbols that reflect our inner landscape. Some of those symbols appear in the world around us. Others, we carry on our very bodies. Hair, then, becomes more than just a biological feature. It becomes an archetypal signal. It carries meaning, not because society imposes that meaning on it, but because the unconscious mind naturally organizes reality through patterns, colors, symbols, and energies. This is why someone with fiery red hair might carry, or even attract, the psychological energy of the rebel, the seducer, or the mystic. Why someone with jet black hair may embody the archetype of the protector, the philosopher, or the shadow explorer. Why the radiant blonde might mirror the energy of the child, the muse, or the bringer of light. And why the earthy brunette often channels the energy of stability, nurturing, and grounded wisdom. And for those whose hair turns silver or white with time, the symbolism deepens even further, connecting them with the archetype of the sage, the elder, the wise one. When we look through Jung's lens, these associations are not superficial stereotypes. They are reflections of deep, timeless patterns that the human psyche has always recognized, even if not consciously understood. So the real question becomes, what energy does your hair color reflect about your inner world? And just as importantly, are you consciously embodying that energy or unconsciously resisting it? In the next part, we'll explore exactly what each hair color symbolizes through the lens of Jungian psychology. You might be surprised to discover that the story written in your reflection has always been far more profound than you realized. The meaning of black hair, the depth of the shadow, and the guardian of mysteries. Let's begin with one of the most common, and yet, one of the most misunderstood, hair colors. Black. Across cultures, black hair has always been associated with mystery, depth, and power. And when viewed through the lens of Carl Jung's psychology, this symbolism isn't coincidental. It's an expression of deep archetypal forces at work. In Jungian terms, black is the color of the shadow, but not in a negative sense. The shadow, in Jung's view, represents everything hidden, everything unseen, everything unknown, both in the world and within the psyche. The shadow isn't just about the repressed or the dark parts of ourselves. It's about depth, introspection, protection, and the capacity to hold complexity. The archetype of the guardian of depth. People with naturally black hair often unconsciously embody the archetype of the guardian, the philosopher, the protector of mysteries, or even the shadow explorer. There is a natural gravitation toward depth, toward looking beneath the surface of things. They are rarely satisfied with superficial answers. Whether they are aware of it or not, they often carry an intense inner world, rich with thought, reflection, and emotional complexity. They may be the ones who sense what's unsaid in a conversation, who notice the undercurrents in relationships, who intuitively feel what others try to hide. This is not about suspicion. It's about a natural ability to perceive the unseen layers of reality. In mythology, the color black is frequently tied to the archetype of the sorcerer, the priestess, the sage, or the keeper of forbidden knowledge. It's the color of the fertile soil in which seeds grow unseen. It's the color of the night sky that holds the stars. It's the invitation to go inward, to confront the unknown, and to emerge wiser. Psychological tendencies. Those who carry this archetypal energy tend to be introspective, observant, and often emotionally intense. They may prefer fewer but deeper connections rather than wide circles of superficial relationships. They value authenticity. Pretending, small talk, and shallow interactions often feel draining or meaningless. There is also a natural protective instinct. People with black hair may find themselves in roles where they serve as emotional anchors for others, whether as the quiet listener, the mentor, the guide, or the protector in times of chaos. The light and the shadow of black hair. Like all archetypes, the energy of black hair holds both light and shadow. The light side is wisdom, resilience, emotional depth, and an unparalleled ability to see through illusions. These individuals are often the ones people turn to when life gets hard, when real answers are needed, not platitudes. Their presence feels grounding, safe, solid. But the shadow side of this archetype can manifest as isolation, emotional heaviness, or even cynicism. Sometimes diving so deep into the mysteries of life can make it difficult to stay connected to joy, spontaneity, or lightness. There can be a tendency toward overthinking, rumination, or getting lost in existential questions. Some may feel misunderstood, perceived as serious, intense, or too deep by others who operate more on the surface. This can lead to withdrawing even further into solitude, reinforcing the pattern. The spiritual calling. The spiritual calling for those with this archetypal signature is profound. It's the calling of the alchemist of the psyche, the one who isn't afraid to descend into their own depths, to confront the unknown, to wrestle with the shadow, and to transform darkness into wisdom. They are the carriers of depth in a world obsessed with appearances. The guardians of sacred mysteries in a culture distracted by noise. They are the ones who, whether consciously or unconsciously, remind others that life isn't just what's visible, but also what is hidden, subtle, and sacred. A reflection to hold. If your hair is black, whether by birth or by choice, ask yourself, where am I being called to embrace depth rather than distraction? Am I honoring my role as a guardian of emotional truth? Or am I retreating into isolation? How can I balance my need for introspection with the joy of being present in the world? Because when the energy of black hair is fully integrated, it becomes a gift, not just to the self, but to everyone around. These are the people who hold space for transformation, who can witness the pain, the grief, the uncertainty of others, and offer presence, not solutions, silence, not judgment, and wisdom, not empty comfort. The meaning of brown hair. The energy of the grounded builder and the keeper of stability. If black hair represents the depth of the shadow and the mystery of the unseen, brown hair stands as a symbol of stability, groundedness, and harmony with the natural world. In Jungian psychology, this archetype is profoundly connected to the earth element, the energy that nourishes, sustains, and creates safety. Brown, as a color, is the color of the soil, the foundation, the roots, the place where things grow steadily, slowly, and with patience. People with brown hair, whether by nature or by choice, often embody the psychological archetype of the builder, the provider, the sustainer, or the caretaker of order. The archetype of the builder of stability. There is something profoundly comforting about the presence of those who carry this energy. They are often the quiet, reliable force behind families, communities, and relationships. They don't crave the spotlight. Instead, their strength lies in constancy, the ability to show up day after day with dedication, patience, and care. In a chaotic, fast-paced world, the brown-haired archetype becomes the embodiment of safety, reliability, and nourishment. These are the people who hold things together, the ones who create homes, build relationships, nurture growth, and preserve what truly matters. This archetype resonates deeply with the energies of loyalty, practicality, and long-term vision. There is a deep understanding that real value comes not from flashes of excitement, but from consistency over time. Psychological tendencies. Psychologically, those who carry this energy often possess an innate sense of responsibility. They are usually the ones others turn to in times of need, not because they are flashy problem solvers, but because their presence alone brings calm. They are grounded, sensible, and pragmatic. While others may get lost in fantasies or impulsivity, the builder archetype understands the importance of process, discipline, and tending to the small details that lead to lasting outcomes. Emotionally, they may not always be expressive in grand, dramatic ways, but their love is shown through actions, through care, dedication, and presence. There is often a strong connection to nature, the earth, and tangible experiences. These are the people who feel at peace when they are working with their hands, cooking, gardening, building, or simply being present in the real, physical world, the light and the shadow of brown hair. The light side of this archetype is beautiful. It is the strength that holds families together, the patience that builds dreams over years, the loyalty that stands firm even when times are hard. It is grounded wisdom, the kind that knows that life isn't a sprint, but a marathon of meaningful steps. But the shadow side can emerge when this energy becomes too rigid. The desire for stability can morph into resistance to change. The need for security can turn into fear of the unknown. Brown-haired individuals may find themselves overly attached to comfort, routine, or familiarity, afraid to step into uncertainty, growth, or transformation. This can also manifest as over-responsibility, taking on too much, carrying the burdens of others, and forgetting to tend to their own needs, dreams, and desires. At times, the desire to keep the peace or preserve harmony can lead to suppressing emotions, avoiding confrontation, or sacrificing personal authenticity. The spiritual calling. The spiritual calling of the brown-haired archetype is the guardian of the earth and the master of balance. It is the invitation to cultivate stability, not as a prison of routine, but as a fertile ground for growth, creativity, and meaningful connection. These individuals are called to remember that while roots are essential, so is the courage to grow upward and outward. The earth doesn't just hold. It also nourishes the seeds that become forests. When in balance, they become pillars of strength, not only for themselves but for everyone whose lives they touch. They remind others of the beauty of slowness, of presence, of the sacredness found in the simple, the ordinary, and the consistent. A reflection to hold. If your hair is brown, whether by birth or by choice, ask yourself, am I creating stability that nourishes me, or have I built walls that limit my growth? Where am I being called to embrace change, even when it feels uncomfortable? How can I balance my care for others with the care I offer myself? Because when the energy of brown hair is fully embodied, it becomes one of the most powerful forces in the world. The force that quietly builds, sustains, protects, and makes life meaningful, not through grand gestures, but through the everyday sacredness of being fully present. The meaning of blonde hair. The radiance of light, innocence, and the eternal muse. If black hair symbolizes the mystery of the shadow and brown hair represents the grounding force of the earth, blonde hair stands as the embodiment of light, radiance, and visible energy. It is the hair color most often associated with youth, purity, allure, and the captivating presence of the eternal muse. In Jungian terms, this isn't a coincidence. The color blonde resonates with archetypes tied to the child, the innocent, the muse, and even the divine messenger, the bearer of light in a world that often feels dark and heavy. The archetype of the radiant muse. Blonde hair carries an undeniable symbolic power. Across cultures and throughout history, it has been associated with light, divinity, and even supernatural beauty. In ancient mythology, gods, goddesses, and celestial beings were often depicted with golden hair, radiating an otherworldly glow that separated them from the ordinary. People with blonde hair, whether natural or chosen, often unconsciously channel the archetype of the muse, the bringer of light, or the innocent child. There is an energy of visibility, presence, and magnetic attraction that tends to follow them. This doesn't necessarily mean they seek attention. It means that their presence evokes something in others, a curiosity, a longing, a sense of awe, or even protectiveness. Psychological tendencies. Psychologically, those who carry this archetypal energy often embody qualities of openness, spontaneity, and emotional expressiveness. There is frequently a natural charisma, whether soft and gentle or bold and captivating. There's often a playful quality to them, a lightness, a sense of curiosity about life, coupled with a desire to connect, to experience beauty, and to bring joy into the spaces they inhabit. At their core, they may carry a powerful gift, the ability to uplift others, to remind them of hope, wonder, and the simple joys that often get lost in the seriousness of adulthood. The light and the shadow of blonde hair. The light side of this archetype is magnetic. These individuals can bring levity into heavy situations, offer comfort through their mere presence, and become sources of inspiration for those around them. They often embody creativity, joy, and emotional openness in ways that make others feel seen, valued, and uplifted. But as with all archetypes, there is also a shadow. The shadow side of blonde hair is the risk of being objectified, underestimated, or reduced to surface-level qualities. Throughout history and even today, blonde individuals, particularly women, often face projections from others, whether of naive innocence, hypersexualization, or assumed simplicity. This can create inner tension. On one hand, their natural visibility brings opportunities and admiration. On the other, it can lead to feeling misunderstood, not taken seriously, or pressured to maintain an image that doesn't reflect their depth. Another shadow expression is the risk of over-identifying with lightness, avoiding depth, complexity, or uncomfortable truths in an attempt to stay above the darkness of life. This can lead to spiritual bypassing, superficial relationships, or emotional disconnection from the harder aspects of reality. The spiritual calling. The spiritual path of the blonde-haired archetype is the journey from external light to internal radiance. It is the invitation to move beyond the image of being the muse for others, and instead become the muse for themselves. To cultivate an inner light that doesn't depend on validation, appearance, or external attention. When this energy is balanced, they become radiant not because of how others see them, but because they have learned to embody joy, hope, and emotional truth from within. They remind the world that light is not the absence of darkness. It is the courageous decision to shine even when surrounded by it. A reflection to hold. If your hair is blonde, whether by birth or by choice, ask yourself, am I living as the reflection of others' projections or as the truth of my own light? Where have I been asked to stay small, innocent, or pleasing, instead of standing fully in my power? How can I honor my gift of bringing joy and light while also embracing my depth, complexity, and wholeness? Because when the energy of blonde hair is truly integrated, it becomes a beacon, not just for beauty or admiration, but for authentic presence, inner radiance, and the reminder that light exists, even in the darkest places. The meaning of red hair, the fire of the rebel, the seducer, and the wild spirit. If blonde hair symbolizes light and innocence, and brown hair embodies stability and groundedness, then red hair stands in a category of its own. It is the symbol of fire, passion, intensity, and the untamable spirit. In Jungian psychology, red hair connects deeply to the archetypes of the rebel, the seducer, the alchemist, and the wild soul, those who cannot and will not be easily tamed. The archetype of the wildfire. Throughout history and across cultures, red hair has been both revered and feared. It has been associated with magic, seduction, danger, mystery, and otherworldliness. People with red hair often evoke a visceral response in others, an unconscious recognition that they carry something different, something that cannot be domesticated. Jung would likely view this as an embodiment of the archetype of transformation. Fire is the element that destroys, yes, but also the element that purifies, renews, and gives birth to new forms. The red-haired soul is often a soul of contrast, intense yet sensitive, passionate yet independent, magnetic yet elusive. There is an inherent boldness in this archetype. Even those who do not consciously embrace it often find that life thrusts them into roles where they are seen as challengers of the norm, questioning, provoking, and igniting change, whether within themselves or in the world around them. Psychological tendencies. Psychologically, those who carry this energy are often deeply emotional, though they may hide it behind humor, sarcasm, or fierce independence. There is a strong desire for authenticity, an intolerance for falseness, hypocrisy, or anything that feels artificial. They often possess a creative, rebellious spirit. These are the people who don't just accept what life gives them. They challenge it, mold it, and seek to redefine it on their own terms. Their energy can be seductive, captivating, and electric, but it can also be overwhelming, both to themselves and others. Relationships for the red-haired archetype are often intense. They crave depth, passion, and full-spectrum emotional experiences. Half measures rarely satisfy them: the light and the shadow of red hair. The light side of this archetype is the power of transformation. These individuals can light fires in themselves and others that lead to creativity, freedom, and profound change. They are often catalysts, the ones who inspire others to break free from limitations, to live more fully, and to embrace their own wildness. Their presence can be intoxicating, in the best sense. It awakens, stirs, and energizes the spaces they enter. Their passion, when directed consciously, becomes a force for healing, art, leadership, or innovation. But the shadow side of this archetype is the risk of self-destruction, volatility, or perpetual conflict. The same fire that can illuminate can also burn. There may be struggles with anger, impulsiveness, restlessness, or difficulty maintaining stability. At times, the intensity of their emotions can lead to emotional exhaustion, isolation, or a pattern of burning bridges, whether in careers, friendships, or love. There can also be a fear of being trapped, controlled, or domesticated, leading them to push away anything that feels too restrictive, even when it serves them. The spiritual calling. The spiritual journey for the red-haired archetype is the path of the conscious firekeeper. It is learning how to harness the flame, not to extinguish it and not to let it burn out of control, but to direct it as a source of creation, inspiration, and transformation. This archetype is here to remind the world that life isn't meant to be lived in grayscale, that passion, desire, freedom, and wildness are sacred parts of the human experience. Not things to be tamed, but energies to be honored and mastered. When balanced, the red-haired individual becomes a living embodiment of the alchemist, the one who turns chaos into beauty, destruction into rebirth, and pain into power. A reflection to hold. If your hair is red, whether by birth or by choice, ask yourself, where am I being invited to embrace my wildness rather than suppress it? How can I channel my fire in ways that nourish me rather than consume me? Am I running from stability out of fear of being tamed? Or am I ready to create a life where freedom and commitment can coexist? Because when the energy of red hair is fully integrated, it becomes one of the most potent forces of transformation. A reminder that life is not about dimming your light or silencing your fire, but about learning how to let it burn in ways that illuminate your path and inspire others to do the same. The meaning of gray or white hair. The sacred archetype of the elder, the sage, and the keeper of timeless wisdom. If black hair embodies mystery, brown hair represents grounded stability, blonde hair radiates light and innocence, and red hair channels fire and rebellion, then gray or white hair transcends them all. It stands as a living symbol of timeless wisdom, spiritual maturity, and the sacred passage into higher consciousness. In the psychology of Carl Jung, this is not merely about age or appearance. Gray or white hair symbolizes the archetype of the elder, the crone, the sage, and the wisdom keeper. It represents the individual who has walked through the cycles of life, through fire, through darkness, through joy, through grief, and emerged not just older, but transformed. The archetype of the sacred elder. Throughout history and across cultures, those with silver, gray, or white hair were seen as the bridges between worlds. They carried the wisdom of the past, the clarity of the present, and the foresight of the future. Their very presence served as a reminder that life is more than ambition, desire, or survival. It is a spiritual journey. In Jungian terms, this archetype holds the final stage of psychological development, integration. It is the culmination of the journey of individuation, the process through which a person becomes whole, authentic, and aligned with their true self. Those who embody this archetype, whether through natural aging or by choosing to let their hair go gray as an act of empowerment, radiate a quiet but undeniable authority. Their energy says, "I have seen, I have lived, and I now carry the wisdom of my story, not just for myself, but for those who walk behind me." Psychological tendencies. Psychologically, the gray-haired archetype tends to detach from the noise, the superficial, and the distractions that once seemed important. There is a natural turning inward, a desire for meaning, for depth, for reflection. These individuals often become mentors, guides, counselors, or quiet anchors in their communities. Even when not consciously stepping into those roles, others instinctively sense their presence as a source of comfort, clarity, or counsel. There is often a deep appreciation for simplicity, nature, spirituality, and the cycles of life. The need to prove, to compete, or to chase fades, not because desire disappears, but because it evolves. The focus shifts from external validation to inner alignment. The light and the shadow of gray or white hair. The light side of this archetype is profound. It carries the energy of peace, perspective, forgiveness, and unconditional presence. These individuals embody resilience, not as toughness, but as softness earned through the storms of life. They become living libraries of wisdom, capable of offering insight that no book or teacher can replicate. But the shadow side can manifest when the transition into this stage is resisted or misunderstood. For some, the appearance of gray hair, especially in societies obsessed with youth, triggers feelings of invisibility, irrelevance, or decline. There may be a struggle with letting go of former identities, with mourning the passing of earlier stages of life. This can lead to bitterness, regret, or clinging to the past. The fear of aging, of becoming unseen, or of no longer being useful can overshadow the sacred gift this stage is meant to offer. Jung understood this tension deeply. In his view, the second half of life wasn't about decline. It was about spiritual awakening, a time when the ego loosens and the soul steps forward. The spiritual calling. The spiritual calling of the gray-haired archetype is nothing less than the path of the master of integration. It is the invitation to embody a presence that transcends the noise of the world, to become a guide, a witness, and a holder of sacred space for others. These individuals are no longer driven by the dramas of the ego. Their power comes from presence itself, from the ability to sit in silence and know that nothing is missing. That everything, joy, pain, success, failure, has served its purpose in shaping the soul. Their role is to remind others of the long view, of the reality that life is not a sprint, but a spiral of growth, death, rebirth, and transcendence. When this energy is fully embodied, the gray-haired individual becomes a beacon, not of the fleeting glow of youth, but of the enduring light of wisdom. A reflection to hold. If your hair is gray or white, whether by time or by choice, ask yourself, am I resisting the sacred role I'm being invited to step into? What wisdom have I earned that the world is waiting for me to share? How can I embody the truth that aging is not a decline, but a powerful spiritual ascent? Because when the energy of gray or white hair is fully integrated, it transforms the individual into something rare and sacred, a living mirror of what it means to transcend, to witness, and to remind the world that while youth shines, wisdom glows eternally. The meaning of artificial hair colors. The psychological meaning behind choosing to change your hair color. In Jungian terms, changing your hair color is never just about aesthetics. It's a symbolic act, whether conscious or unconscious, of transformation, identity, and self-expression. When someone chooses to dye their hair, they are invoking the archetype of the shapeshifter or the creator. the one who refuses to be confined by fixed identities. It's a declaration that says, I choose the energy I want to carry. A person going blonde may be calling in more visibility, lightness, or playfulness. Choosing black may reflect a desire for depth, mystery, or protection. Red often awakens the inner fire, boldness, and rebellion. Even unconventional colors, like blue, green, or pink, carry symbolic meaning. The rejection of conformity, the embrace of individuality, or the embodiment of a specific emotional frequency. Whether temporary or permanent, this choice reflects an inner psychological movement, the soul's desire to shift, to grow, or to express a part of the self that no longer wants to remain hidden. Now that you've uncovered the deeper symbolic meaning behind your hair color, whether it's the mystery of black, the stability of brown, the radiance of blonde, the fire of red, or the sacred wisdom of gray, it becomes clear that this was never just about hair. It was never just about appearance. It was always about energy, about the invisible forces quietly shaping your emotions, your relationships, your desires, and the way you move through the world. This is the essence of Carl Jung's teachings. Nothing is random. What's visible on the outside is a mirror of what's happening within. And when you learn to read these signs, whether in your reflection, in your patterns, or in your emotions, you stop living on autopilot and start living consciously. But knowing the meaning is only the beginning. Real change starts when you learn how to work with your own mind, your own shadow, and your own energy. That's exactly why I created the SIM method by Jung, a simple practice to free your mind, integrate your shadow, and find inner peace, all in just 5 minutes a day. If you're ready to step into that clarity, the link is waiting for you in the pinned comment below. Because the real question is no longer, what does my hair color say about me? It's now, am I ready to become everything I was always meant to be?